Unsolved Crimes newspaper, as a response to Cavalier civil society organization, within the framework of a struggle against religious extremism, presents
apologetica ed è arrivata una convocazione da parte del Papa.
Massimo Introvigne, Italian religion sociologist, Doctor of Philosophy, Professor, founder and managing director of the Center for Studies on New Religions, former representative on combating racism, xenophobia and discrimination at OSCE.
At least from the Enlightenment and the French Revolution, there are really two kinds of courts on tribunals in modern Western society. There is the court of law and there is the court of the public opinion. And what the public opinion believes may be just as dangerous as what a court believes. So I think if we understand this, we really understand the key of how religious extremists operate. Because if they cannot attack you in the courts, they will attack you through the public opinion and the media. I mentioned it in 2011. I was representative of Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe for combating racism, xenophobia and religious discrimination. And in this capacity I organized an international conference in Rome, September 12, 2011. And this conference I organized was attended by 57 countries, including Ukraine, and also representative of churches, including the Russian Orthodox Church and the Vatican. And in this conference I introduced what is now often mentioned by scholars as the Rome formula. Now, this formula says that if you want to destroy a group and even to physically kill the members of the group, normally you go to 3 stages I called number 1, number 2 and number 3. And the interesting part is this formula was adopted by Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe. Stage number 1 I called intolerance. For the first years they created intolerance against the Jews through propaganda. And there were a lot of novels, caricatures showing the bad Jews eating the poor Germans and the rich Jew making the poor Germans very poor. For instance, the Nazi regime produced a movie called Sus the Jew. And in this movie they show Jews kidnapping Christian children and killing them. And so many people in Germany and also in other countries, because this movie was shown everywhere, really believed that the Jews were around looking for children to kidnap and kill. So the Nazi regime created an enormous machine for persuading the people that the Jews were dangerous for the German citizens.
Alle Juden haben innerhalb 3 Tage Württemberg zu verlassen. Für ganz Württemberg gilt hiermit der Judenbann, gegeben zu Stuttgart am 4. Februar 1738.
So you see, it's a typical example. They persuaded the Germans that they were less happy that they should be because the Jews were living in Germany. Stage number 2 is discrimination. So after a few years, the Nazi regime passed the so-called Nuremberg laws discriminating against the Jews. So under the Nuremberg law, the Jews, again, as it was in the Middle Ages, they could live only in the ghettos, only in certain parts of the city. And they can no longer be university professors, and those who were university professors were fired in Germany. And they cannot serve in the army or in the police, and they cannot even be medical doctors. When people in the United States, some social scientists studied the reaction of the German population to the Nuremberg law, they came to the conclusion that the German population was overwhelmingly in favor of these laws, and because of these laws, Hitler became more popular than it was before. Once the massive propaganda has persuaded the Germans that Jews were a danger for their happiness, of course at this stage they say, we need the government, please government do something because we want to be happy, so we need you to do something against the Jews. So that shows that when you have prepared the ground with intolerance, the population would accept discrimination as something normal and even desirable, necessary. And stage number 3 is persecution. The regime started to say, you see, we passed these laws, but unfortunately we didn't solve the problem. These people who are dangerous for your happiness are still around. Perhaps they are no longer in university or police or the medical profession, but these people are very smart, so they are still influential. Notwithstanding the discrimination law, they are still a danger for your happiness. So there was the private persecution, and some people started going to the Jewish quarters and smashing the windows of the Jewish shops and beating the Jews. We have all seen the movies about this. Of course, the private persecution is never completely private. In fact, these people smashing the windows very often were organized by the regime or the Secret Service. And in the end, the regime introduced the public persecution and started taking Jews to Auschwitz and other concentration camps. When the religious extremists start working, we see a movement which seems very slow. And perhaps we are not very concerned because, okay, they published a couple of articles in the media, they did a movie, they did a cartoon, it's not a big deal. Intolerance is dangerous, perhaps not because of what it is today, but because of what it will generate tomorrow. The same algorithm in a much smaller scale can be used against any group.